Hello and welcome to Powered by Intuition. This is a weekly podcast live recording, and we have quite some subject matter to cover today. And it is quite a day for those who are tuning in on the day that this is being recorded, which is September 11th, 2025. This is the day that we really cover something that happened in my youth, and I witnessed this happen, which was, the horrific events of 9/11. And it's kind of like, it feels like we're kind of living in that surreal space again with the events that happened yesterday. But it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, did not expect this stuff to happen, but there is like this odd sort of almost a morbid fascination with it. Like how the towers fell so perfectly is just mind-boggling. It's like, you witness this event, it's horrific. It is absolutely traumatizing. I wasn't there in New York, but I got a call from my aunt in the morning. I was sleeping in and she's like, this happened. And I'm like, huh? Like I couldn't even process what had happened. And I turn on the TV and there it is. And I'm just like, it's so surreal. It's unexpected. And the saddest part about that is how assistance that was promised has been rescinded from those families. Those people that witnessed and experienced that horrific event. And that's not okay. And these situations are not okay. And so, if there's one thing you can do, it's like be present with these situations happening, have compassion. There is another political figure that never got a vigil, and it's Melissa Hortman or Horner. I forget the name. Excuse me. I'm bad with names. But it's like there are so many that have been harmed in so many ways, only to be backhanded as well. And so, at this time, all get to be honored within the scope of this situation. And it's kind of like one of those things with yesterday where it's like that precision and that skill is unheard of. Like it is very unheard of, and it is very not normal. And that's scary. That's scary for people. So I wanted to start and open with that and kind of cover this circumstance that is current before diving into the topic, because we get to really have these discussions of these events that happen, past, present, and we get to sit in stillness and take a moment of silence around them. So humans are humans. We are all honored. We are all equal as humanity. Coughing because people somehow, for some reason, like to delude themselves into believing otherwise, and that is not true. Everyone is worthy of humanity. Doesn't matter what level of society they're in. Doesn't matter. Everyone gets that basic level of acknowledgement of their humanity. So let's move on with the talk for tonight. I have my little special guest tonight. You don't see me. Look at that tail. Look at that tail. Look at this cutie. He's just like, I've figured out that he's like Gizmo from the Gremlins, and he also makes little Gizmo noises from the Gremlins. So here's your little joy moment. Your little joy moment of Shimmy Pup. He's so cute. So cute. So now on to the teaching, and this teaching it's ubiquitous. It doesn't matter when you are tuning in or when you are listening to this, whether it's from a year from now, 10 years from now, whenever you hear this, it is meant for your ears, and this information is meant for you to consider and conceptualize and begin to utilize and work through in your life. So let's get on to something that I discovered recently. And this also correlates with conversation that I had today, which is why I felt this would be a good topic to bring up, because this is powered by intuition. It's what comes through in the moment is what is meant to come through. So aesthetics came up today. And this is that whole situation of things are not always what they appear. It's that rear view mirror where it's like objects may look bigger than what they actually are. It's these situations where there are wolves in sheep's clothing, and they'll try to pass as sheep. But if you look and understand how sheep move, how they react to things, how they behave, you'll spot the oddities somewhat quicker than otherwise. And when we engage in critical thinking, we begin to see these little nuances of something's not quite right. Something is a little off here. And it was interesting when yesterday I was doing some research and just trying to gather some data, and propaganda came through on this data search. And I was like, this is so weird. This is so strange. What is going on here? And it was on regulations. So the current presidency is purportedly working on removing regulations, and they're not really doing that. It's kind of a backwards, inverted way of heavily regulatory or creating heavy regulatory aspects in different ways. So it's like it appears as if there is a removal of regulations. This is the aesthetic. It appears like this person may have a ton of wealth, and then you really get to know them and they have nothing. And I've actually experienced this with someone before, where a mutual called an individual that I was working for at the time Mr. Money Pants. And I was like, what are you talking about? This person has barely any money, is barely making rent, barely able to get by. And it's not like they're not skilled at their craft. It's not like they haven't worked with like major music industry. It's not like they haven't worked with amazing people who are like high performing celebrities. It's not like they're not a high performing celebrity or well-known individual themselves. But there were the gaps in getting steady work in the industry. It's feast or famine. It's not always like they have a ton of money at their disposal. And so sometimes you will find people in the industry have bouts with homelessness. There are actually some very, like I think Terry Crews was one person who was, I think he did football. Like he was a major in football, and then money dried up and he was on the street for a bit. And then, got back into celebrity action. But, these situations are very real at any point in time. It can happen to anybody. It can happen to anybody for any reason. That happened to people in the Palisades. That happened to people in Altadena. In those moments' notice, things can change and shift. Like, even though they could have wealth on paper, that money could be locked up in something and it might not actually be real. That's the appearances being deceiving. And net worth is not a reality of liquid funds. That's appearances being deceiving. And we fall for it all the time, don't we? We put people on a pedestal of our design, and then we have this idea, and some people push that idea on others. Once you get to a point where you're like, no, there's a little too much ego there, which means you're trying to protect something, is when those flaws or those fissures of BS start seeping through and you can start to spot it. So what's the difference between being in ego and being in confidence? It's that sense of safety and security. The ego is a protection mechanism. It's to hide, it's to protect, it's to keep you from seeing what's real. It creates a deception. It's like, you see someone in a suit of armor and they're covered from head to toe. And if you never knew what a suit of armor was, if you never saw it before, you don't know if there's a human in there. You don't know if it's a robot. You don't know what's going on behind that metal plating. You have no idea. You have no clue. None. Yeah, the pedestal of algorithmic design also. Yeah, technology's used so much. Absolutely. When it comes to that suit of armor, you have no idea what's underneath the metal. You don't know if it might be a kid operating levers and pulleys. You have no idea. And that's the guise of ego. It's like a suit of armor. It's shiny. It looks impressive. It looks amazing. It looks scary. It looks very threatening. But what's underneath it is more often than not just a human, just a normal, average human being. And so that's how I equate the presence of ego. But if you are a person who is within your power, if you are a person who actually feels secure and you don't need that plate armor to feel that way, to present yourself authentically and be like, come at me, that's a person who is actually scary. Because you'll see that person in the suit of armor and they'll be like, why doesn't this person have any armor on? What that's, come on, like you gotta be kidding, right? Like and it's gonna mess with them. It's gonna mess with their mind. It's gonna mess with their consciousness. It's gonna mess with their morale, because you're just like, I'm here to do my thing. So it's like that David and Goliath story, right? Like David definitely messed with Goliath's head, and David definitely had the skills and the confidence to back it up. Now I am using religious ideology because whether you believe in the teaching of the Bible or not, it is a historical book. And even more than that, it is a book on human behavior. It is like a book of princes. A book of princes is actually part of that. That is, what is it? It's the section that, Simi, what are you doing, buddy? Cutie. It's a section where it's giving out knowledge, parables. I believe it's Psalms is part of that. And that gives you insight on how to live your life and how to have a better life. Doesn't matter if, you want to believe in God or not. That doesn't factor into human behavior and human behavior patterns. That's why I consider that book important. And that's why I've read that book cover to cover many times, to kind of unravel, and reveal these principles that are indicative of human nature and human behavior patterns. So let's get back into a little more of this in relation to my search query yesterday on my research. So I was utilizing AI. I do utilize AI. I like AI. I've been watching AI for a little bit. And I do try to use it for research, although there's little, it's okay, buddy. There's a little buzz. Oh my God, this cute little vase. We're gonna hold you right here. So I do my best to get actual data-based information from ChatGPT, and I hold it accountable to that because I am aware of hallucinations. I'm aware of how it's gathering data. I'm aware of how AI operates. So no, I'm not going to fall for the delusion. If it starts kissing my butt, I'm going to be like, we're done. I don't deal with that stuff really well. Fortunately, fortunately or misfortunately, I didn't get a lot of praise in my childhood. So it's like being praised now is really awkward. And I'm like, okay, this is all right. You don't need to do that. You're an AI. You're not a human being. I don't believe any of this. I don't believe you feel, and you've told me you haven't felt. So I don't fall for the BS. You kiss my butt, and I'm going to be like, I want real data. I want real feedback. I'm not perfect, and I recognize and acknowledge and fully embrace the fact that I'm not perfect. And I move forward in a way that I want to improve myself. That is self-improvement. I'm able to take in the hard facts, the hard data, the harsh words, and either I'll be like, well, that's really opinion based. Like someone was like, oh, you look like you're 60. And I'm like, no, I don't. But thank you. That means that I am coming across as a very wise and older individual to you. I have no problem with that because I'm confident and I'm okay with myself and my age. And actually, funny enough, I call myself ageless. It doesn't matter what age you think I am. Age is a number to me. So when people ask my age, I'm like, I'm ageless. Okay, I'm ageless. And I'll roll with that. And I have fun with that. And I enjoy doing that because I don't want anybody to feel bad of their age. And I don't need to feel bad about my age either. So it's like, it doesn't matter what age I can be. It doesn't matter. This information is timeless. It is ageless. So going on, obviously that exposed a person's low self-esteem about age, about aging, and their fear about aging. So when people purport things that are not really factual, they're saying a lot more about themselves than they realize. They're giving away a lot more information. They're letting me know where their weaknesses are. And that's ego. That's what ego does. If you're worried about aesthetics, you're going to be very vulnerable to weaknesses. You're going to be very vulnerable to something as simple and ridiculous as a wrinkle. Imagine being vulnerable to a wrinkle, that a wrinkle can ruin your entire day. How ridiculous is that? Wow, I just ran into this for accusation as a Yep. Imagine being so weak and vulnerable that a wrinkle can ruin your day. If you don't find that ridiculous, you're not ready for this information yet. So instead of being hostile, which is being an ego, it's like, wow, I'm sorry, child. You are going to have a very harsh life, if not a short one. If a wrinkle can do that to you, if age is so harmful or such a scary concept that you can't handle the natural order of life, this is just living life. Age is a natural part of living life, and people are scared of it. They are so terrified of it and have no idea the wealth of knowledge and insights older people have. Had I not been who I am, even as a person in the entertainment industry, like I wouldn't have a lot of these insights because I do hang out with a lot of older people. I observe, I am quiet, I let them share their stories, I learn. And it's opened my eyes to a lot. Like our situation in this day and age, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, nobody's ever been through this before in the history of humanity. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Chill out. How did you get here? What? How did you get here? What do you mean? Your great-grandparents went through the Spanish flu, Great Depression, whatever else they had to experience from their own countries. No vaccines, very limited healthcare, more quackery than healthcare. How did you get here? How did you get here? Wow. Amazing, you exist. They've been through a whole lot worse. We are in the cushy confines of a lot. And yet it has been very detrimental to us too, in the same way. It's always a push-pull dynamic. So within that push-pull, you can choose to see more of what's good, what works, or you can choose to see more of what doesn't work. Aesthetics. The guise of everything is perfect and everything is fine is not real either. Like there are people who can't handle, yeah, bad stuff happens. And it's okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have that day. It's okay to be angry and upset. And it's okay to work through that and get out of that state and have self-control and have emotional control and have power and mastery over yourself. Now, it's harder for people who are neurodivergent. I am not slamming anybody who's neurodivergent. It is going to be harder. And sometimes it is impossible because there wasn't the support or the coping mechanisms. And there could be a lot of trauma around that. So I just want to be very clear on that. Sometimes these teachings aren't always for everybody, but we can do our best. And we can come at different situations and understanding others with empathy. A person lost is a person lost. Life is a precious thing. And, for people who consider themselves as Christians and choose to be violent individuals, it's like, you don't understand God at all. And that's sad. That's very sad to me. But that doesn't change the way that I get to see them in their basic form of humanity and understanding. But there are things that I won't tolerate, that I won't accept. I don't care what echelon of society a person is in. I have literally said to a person's ears, not directly to their face, that a very high-profile person, that I was not a fan of them. They did not take it very well. They were taken aback by that. And I'm like, I rule my life by my values, and I work with my value system. And I don't have to say anything else besides we're not values aligned. I don't work with a spirit of fear. I work with a spirit of personal empowerment. And that person kind of liked to do fear-based rhetoric and mechanisms. And I'm just not cool with that at all. Thank you for the likes, by the way. And then they came onto this platform saying, hello, my fans. And I'm like, not a fan, not a fan, but I'll be your mutual. And, doesn't matter who they are. I consider a person by how they are and not who they are. How are they behaving? Are they in conflict with my values? Great. We can just part ways here now. Like, I don't have to be catty. I don't have to be mean. I don't have to be vicious. I don't have to be vile. I don't have to attack them. I'm just going to be like, we're not values aligned. And some people need to change some things, especially when it comes to harming others in any way, shape, or form. All right. Hopefully you can hear me now. That was an alarm that went off. Which is like, it's 7:30. Time to kind of wrap this up and get into the discussion phase. But when I was asking ChatGPT, sorry, I went on a little tangent there, but let's come back in. When I was asking ChatGPT some questions about things, it brought up a lot of propaganda, and I was like, that's weird. That's very odd. How strange, because let's bring up this situation where, there are certain regulations or regulatory factors that were considered to be removed. But it's kind of a ruse, right? Because yes, you can remove regulations and you can honor that removal of regulations, be like, hey, you have freedom, but it's not free. It's not freedom when they are controlling people to not have their freedom, if you understand what I mean. So, like, if someone wants to have a broad range of people from a broad background of experiences and different countries, different families, they are not allowed to highlight that anymore. That is not freedom. That is not a removal of regulations. That is highly regulating a situation. But it's that wolves in sheep clothing paradigm where it's like, oh, we're going to make this look good. We're going to make it sound good, but it's not. It's still a regulation that's just disguised in a different way. So if you're punishing a business for being like, yeah, I want a broad range of people because I feel like they're going to give me the greatest advantage as a business, the greatest broad set of knowledge, and you're stopping me from doing that, or you're raiding my business illegally, I might add, especially if they don't have a warrant. If you're doing these things against me for wanting the best ability for my business to thrive, that's regulating. That's heavily regulated. Those are restrictions. So while they purport that there are no regulations and this has been removed, you're free, it's not. It's not. It's, you got to look under the hood of the car. You got to understand the actual paradigm of what's happening. And when these lawsuits happen in these situations, it's not to the benefit of anyone. It's actually creates more of a detriment. It creates more of a problem. And it's not from a place of security. It's from a place of insecurity. It's not from a place of trying to help people. It's from a place of fear and ego and my way or the highway, and I'm right and I'm the greatest and I'm the best, because they're not really that. If you have to say it, you're not really that. You're not being that. Because you have to say it. You're not owning it or actually earning that from others. So I'm going to kind of wrap this section up with a thing that happened today too that is very concerning. There were people outside of my child's school across the street, two grown men of a pale color that were giving away free food for biblical sake to kids. No parents around. Just here, have some free pizza. Have some free food. That's not okay. That's grooming. I don't care what it's for. Two grown men should not be outside of a school just handing these things out. And it was for the Bible, for Christianity. And I'm like, so my child and I had a discussion about this. And it's like, here's the thing. If they were really living in faith, they wouldn't need to entice you with food. They wouldn't need to manipulate you. They wouldn't need to bring you in with something. Them living by their faith should be enough to make you go, huh, that's interesting. What are they doing? Yeah, not just Trojan horse gifts. It's scary. That's grooming. You don't know what they put in that food. They're not from the school. That is not okay. And here's the worst part. My child has friends across the country, even in other countries. And I guess a friend in another part of the country, the same thing happened to their school where people were handing out flyers. I don't like this. Like, if the church was doing the right thing, you would attract people. So this is the thing. When you're living in authenticity, when you're living in your values, when you're living in integrity, when you are living in your confidence in who you are, your identity, you don't need to manipulate people. You can just attract people. Just share your story, share who you are, be out there. And people will take notice. People will take notice. Because we're meant to be unique. We're meant to shine and shine a light on our weaknesses, because that's what makes us different. You know, some person might be like, oh, I hate my nose because it looks so weird. That's what makes you you. And I had the conversation today with someone where I was like, talking about the industry. And that person was like, yeah, I had a acting teacher that was like, I need to cap my teeth and shave them down. And I was like, that's stupid. And he was like, yeah, I've gotten plenty of work. You know, you've probably seen this person in a commercial just for being their quirky selves and having that variance. And I looked around and I told that person, I was like, yeah, I actually, you know, being in the industry, I was so prepared to have that agent go, oh, well, you need to lose weight and you need to do this, this, and this. And I was already pre-prepped to be like, well, I guess you're not that good at your job if you need everybody to look cookie cutter exactly the same way. Because I looked at the industry and I was like, well, that person's really different. They really stand out. That person's very unique and distinct. If everybody looked like the Kardashians, why would they get someone that's not a Kardashian to pretend to be a Kardashian? They're just going to go for the Kardashians. If you're not unique and willing to be different and shine in your light, no matter how quirky and awkward, why would you want to be a cookie cutter carbon copy of something that is already dialed in on that? Why would you want to be called a Temu Kardashian? Why on earth would you want that for yourself? Be you. Be the best you. Be the most authentic you. And people will take notice. Now, if there's something that really bothers you, that you're like, I can't go on dealing with this situation because it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel right, take care of it in the way that you see fit. But don't let others manipulate you into that. You make your own choices on that, on what matters in your life. So hope that helps. Thank you, everybody, for joining in on that. And I just really want these learnings to stick. And of course, if you're tuning in, I do have a item that'll help you. It's a resilience journal. It's more of a workbook, but it is designed to serve and support you on this, especially when it comes to identity work. So would love to see your comments and any questions for those who are on the tube of you. I am going to say good night and have a great one. And for those who are on the clock app, I am going to come over and focus to you. So if you are on the tube, come on over to the clock app, and vice versa if you want to watch the replay if you're just hopping on now. All right, so I'm going to end the stream. Bye, everybody over here on the tube.